It might be the most singular, greatest image in all of Vinland Saga, seeing Thorfinn barely able to stand, bruised, broken, bloody, giant swollen black eye, giant swollen nose, his hair in his face, he's all a mess, everyone just looking at him astonished, and he just stands there and says, "I have no enemies." It literally is one of the most powerful images in the entire manga, and I think that the anime did it justice. The swelling of the music, the reactions from the other characters, the way the voice actor delivered it, even though I don't speak Japanese, it just sounded cool. All right. The way that it was all presented and the artistic flair that the episode gave it, I thought it was perfect, because this may be like one of the most powerful moments in the entire series, in the entire manga, in the entire franchise, because of what it symbolizes. And that is Thorfinn. I don't want to go with like religious allegory here, but, taking the burden on and enduring the pain, enduring the turmoil, so other people don't have to suffer, right? And so it's him finally understanding what his father meant. It's him trying to find another way to solve this almost impossible to solve problem. And look, I get it. The situation that he's in this particular moment might be a little convenient. I completely understand that. There will be more challenges for Thorfinn to face moving forward. Obviously, you can't solve every problem by saying, hit me 100 times and then I can do what I want. But in this particular instance, and I think for what it means for the character development of Thorfinn and seeing him kind of transition, and he's not done yet. There's still a lot that Thorfinn has to go through and endure. But I think that showcasing this, as opposed to who he was at the finale of season 1, where we see him going into that kind of chaotic rage. He's the one that slashed Canoe across the face, of course, which was the culmination of his character in season 1, and just not knowing what to do with himself, only having one singular goal, singular focus, and delving fully into that sort of darkness and rage. When that was all ripped away from him, when Askeladd said, go on, go beyond this, do something better, do something greater, become a true warrior. And what does that actually mean? Because his father said that too, said a true warrior needs no sword. I don't understand that. What does that mean? And it all comes down to this moment where I think Thorfinn truly begins to understand. And essentially, it's not just pacifism, and it's not just anti-violence. It's how do you solve this impossible problem without fighting back with rage, with violence? He's standing here, and he made a deal when he found out people were betting on how many punches he could take before he goes down. He bet on himself and said that if you can hit me 100 times and I'm still standing, you let me talk to the king. And that's what is happening here in this instance. And everybody wants to stop it. Obviously, he seems like a crazy person. And if I heard somebody say this, I would probably think they're pretty damn crazy. Also, Einar comes up and tries to stop it. Snake and Olmar are there, and they try to stop it, and he continues to go. He's even baiting the attacker at one point after he goes down and stands back up. He says, hey, you got 68 to go. I haven't got all day. Get it over with. He's just kind of like taunting him into it more. Basically kind of in that moment giving him the same energy, but it's so like ridiculously inverted. We're playing the reverse Uno card on him. It's just like, instead of saying, hey bitch, I'm gonna beat you up, it's more like, hey bitch, come punch me. Like, what do you got? It's sort of that, it's also like a little bit of a mind game to play on him too, to make him a little bit more frantic, which causes Thorfinn to be a little bit more in his calm, so that he can, twist and maneuver his body and help the punches slide off of him and not connect fully. There's something really interesting that happens after Thorfinn is continuously getting punched, dozens and dozens and dozens of times, is that there's this moment where at the very beginning of the confrontation where Thorfinn was going to fight this guy, well, this guy was going to fight, Thorfinn was going to not, throw a punch the entire time. There was sort of this adrenaline-filled energy that was going through the crowd where everyone was excited to see it. Everyone was pumped to see it. They're like, yeah, kick this guy's ass, right? But there's something really interesting that happens, after a couple dozen punches where they realize that Thorfinn's not going down. And you're just watching one man continuously punch another man over and over. A man that's being extremely brave. A man that hasn't really done anything to any of them. A man that doesn't have any sort of gripes with the guys that are doing this, with the man that's punching him, that has no, backstory. There's no animosity. There was nothing that was built up between them. It's just this situation. And as it continues to go further, the look in the crowd goes from being like really excited to see somebody get beat up to I wouldn't say obviously these are Norse, Vikings, so they're very used to violence and death and chaos and war and all of that, so they're not getting like queasy by watching this. But what I mean to say is that I think that there's this sort of subtle realization in the back of their minds watching this, just thinking like, does this really have to go on? Like, do we really have to do like, you're kind of seeing the reality of just somebody getting beaten up, and after a while you realize you have nothing against this person, and you realize that they haven't really done anything wrong, and it was fun at first, but after a while it kind of becomes like, why are we doing this? Like, what is the point of all this? And I think that is the point. Thorfinn, he's here, and he doesn't want to resort to having to fight back. And he found himself in a very unique situation where he doesn't have to. He just has to remain conscious and get hit a bunch of times. But he mentions, nobody tried to find another way. When Canute showed up with swords, Kettle responded with swords. That was Kettle's first instinct. Now, Kettle was going through a huge psychological breakdown at the time. So you understand his character, but at the same time, he put all of those people in danger that eventually got killed. He put all those farmers in danger. He forced them to fight, knowing full well in the back of his mind that they were never going to win the fight, but he never tried to communicate anything. He never tried to talk with Canute. He never, he immediately, fought chaos with more chaos. As soon as something was attacking him, he attacked back. And I think that there's something really interesting about it, because what Thorfinn is essentially doing is de-escalating the situation. He's making it be like, oh, okay, I don't even really want to fight. I don't even really want to watch somebody get punched anymore. Like, all right, like he's taking it down. And this is something that's you can attribute to real life, and it's very, very difficult sometimes to do. And I noticed that a lot of times in interactions with people, if somebody is enraged or somebody is angry about something and they're lashing out and they're shouting, your first instinct is to lash out and shout back, right? If they got you wrong about something, or they're coming at you with something you have nothing to do with, you want to express that rage directly back to them, right? But by doing that, their rage gets more intense, because now if they see that you're angry also, they need to become more angry so that they feel more dominant in the situation. And then when they do that, it comes back to you, and now they've increased their anger. So now you want to increase your anger also to match them. Be like, no, you shouldn't be angry. I'm the one that should be fucking angry. And it goes back and forth continuously. There is something really interesting that happens in life, and I've worked a lot of retail, so I feel like I'm experienced in this situation, where somebody is attacking you with a bunch of rage and anger, and the quickest way to solve the situation is to remain calm and to speak to them in a softer tone and to speak with facts and to not get into your emotions about the situation. And that's really what it comes down to. It's not letting your emotions rule you. It's not feeding off of what you feel in the moment, but kind of like taking a step back and being that awareness, behind it, where you're able to kind of talk rationally and clearly, and you're speaking with only the facts, and you're not getting emotionally invested into it, right? So when people come at you with that sort of negative energy, it's hard to do, and it takes training, and sometimes you really, 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 really want to lash back. But many times, if you are able to stay calm and remain within your calm and be rational and have a discussion, a lot of times it will de-escalate the situation. It will bring that anger down. Now, there are some cases where some people are never going to be, brought down from that. But many, many times it does seem to work. And this is on an enhanced scale. This is a fictional, well, historically realistic, but, fictional story scale of that same kind of dynamic. But I think that it also works in this case, where if Thorfinn reacted with anger and rage and fought back, then that fight would go to the end, and all of the energy of the entire crowd would be with it until the end. And the more that he fought back, the more they would want to see Thorfinn get his ass beat. But because he's not fighting back, and because he's remaining calm, and because he just wants to do this one thing, and he's asking and he's requesting and he's being polite, other than when he calls him out and says like, hey, you got 60 punches left, let's go. It becomes something different. They're kind of like their energy's up here and it's being brought down by Thorfinn, where he's able to kind of quell this situation. So it's a really, really interesting thing that's happening here. It is like on a psychological level, affecting all the other characters, which is him, kind of spreading that to the other characters to kind of make them think a little bit twice in the moment. Afterwards, the guy that was hitting him says that he apologizes for underestimating him, and he says that, you are a great warrior, and he didn't even have to lift a finger. That's the best part about it. So there is something powerful there about that. And I think that that's why when Thorfinn says, I have no enemies, is because he just met these people today, right? Regardless of if they're good people or bad people or what they've done in this particular situation, I don't know you and you don't know me. So the best way to resolve this problem is just to figure it out. Like, let's communicate, let's talk about it, which is something that nobody else on the farm tried to do. The second half of the episode is Thorfinn speaking with Canute. It's been a long time since those two characters have seen each other. Unfortunately, the episode does not finish the conversation and interaction between the two characters. I don't want to spoil things for anime onlys that watch these reviews, so I can't really talk about the full conversation. But essentially, one thing that is upsetting is in the manga, Einar has a line where he's talking about farming, and Canute, he's just coming in here and taking this land, and he's never had to do it himself. And he has a line that says, I bet you never held a hoe in your life. And of course, that line has been taken out of context many times, but I kind of wish that it was in here just so that we had an anime version of it. But unfortunately, it is not. But Einar has a great point in that, he understands the difficulty of farming, of creating, of cultivating, of actually, of doing the agricultural work and actually making food and doing all the things that it takes to make a farm actually work. And Canute's just going to come in here, commandeer the farm, and he's going to have all that, plentiful, goods and crops just kind of available to him. But Einar put in the hard work. Him and Thorfinn were literally ripping trees out of a field. They worked for years together. Like, they spent all these years making this giant field of wheat, and then Canute can now just come in and just take it, right? And so that's a very legitimate point that Einar has, and I like that he was actually able to speak to the king and say this. On Canute's side of things, it is wild, like, how different of a character he has become in this season. The same thing with Thorfinn. These two characters, the last time they met, they were both very, very different people. 4 years can do a lot to change somebody. And, Canute here is saying so many interesting things, like, about how God, controls everything that's going on here, but he didn't leave this paradise for humanity here. We're left in chaos, we're left to suffer, and so I have to be the one to save these people, because bringing us together as humans, as humanity as a whole, will make us strong and will make us be able to compete with God and like the horrors that he kind of left for us. So he's running a rebellion against God to create this, but to do so, he has to unify everybody, and especially he has to save them, and saving the Vikings is also part of his plan, which is something Thorfinn never even considered or never even thought of. And so by conquering as much as possible, by unifying everybody under one banner, or as much as he can, with more manpower, with everything that he can possibly obtain, he can create this paradise, or so he believes. And so it's very, very different from where Thorfinn's at right now, because Canute is always the ends justify the means. It's like, whatever I have to do to accomplish my goals will eventually get to this paradise that I see in the future that I'm trying to create. But whatever I have to do to get there is worth it. And of course, this, Einar is just like, this guy, it's ridiculous, He has no idea what it's like to actually work hard, which is kind of true, but also kind of not true, because, Canute has to deal with a lot of the... he has to be there when these horrible things happen, right? That he's commanding to have happen. So he has to take that and be part of it. And the interesting thing about Canute is that he doesn't just order his men to do something and they go do it. Oftentimes he's actually there with them, and he goes, like, he could have just commanded the troops to like go to this farm themselves, but he's actually there. Other things in the manga that I won't spoil, especially even recently, you know, he's there for something very significant. So you know, he's putting himself through it, but you know, at the same time, he's damaging a lot of people. So yeah, very conflicting. Anyways, guys, there's only 2 more episodes of Vinland Saga left of season 2, which is gonna suck. It's gonna kind of screw up my Mondays. Vinland Saga Mondays is kind of something that I always look forward to, but I think they're doing a great job. Now, there's 3 more chapters left to adapt with 2 more episodes. Also, there is a big sequence, a big important sequence that they skipped over that in the previews, it looks like that's gonna be in the next episode. So they could adapt 2 chapters, or a chapter plus that sequence and then the final 2. But considering the final chapter of the arc is kind of separate from the rest of the events, they might cover all of that in the next episode, and then the final chapter just itself, like just the final chapter in the last episode. So I don't really know how they're going to do it. But let me know what you guys thought of this. Let me know what you thought about Thorfinn getting punched in the face. And other than that, guys, like the video, comment. Also, if you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have channel memberships turned on, Patreon, merch store, all that linked down below in the description, as well as all the social media links where you can find me. And shout out to Maddie for making today's thumbnail. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you, brother. Other than that, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.